This is just a video for medical interpreters to help you in recalling the CHIA ethical decision-making process. CHIA is the California Healthcare Interpreting Association, so let me show you how you can actually get to the CHIA standards so you can read a little bit more about this ethical decision-making process. So you're first going to want to go to CHIA's website, which is chiaonline.org. And then you're going to go to About Us, go down to CHIA Standards, boop, 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 boop. Scroll down. This is California Standards for Healthcare Interpreters. Even if you're not in California, which I'm not in California, it's still useful for you. Download your PDF copy. You can tell I have a lot of, well, you can't see it, but I have like 5 copies on my computer. Open this bad boy up. And then if you scroll down to the table of contents, you'll see on section 1, it says Ethical Principles for Healthcare Interpreters. After the ethical principles listed by CHIA, they only have 6, whereas the NCIHC has 9. But you'll find that some of those ethical principles are included in other ethical principles in the California standards. So if you go down here to where it says Ethical Decision Making for Healthcare Interpreters, that's on page 32. This is actually page 30. And so we'll go down to page 32 and you'll see we have our ethical decision-making process. So that's what we're going to be going over today. And it actually goes through, explains a little bit more about this ethical decision-making process. So the first step in CHIA's ethical decision-making process. So this is whenever we're faced with an ethical dilemma in healthcare interpretation, medical interpretation. The first thing we want to do is actually to ask questions to determine if there's a problem. Sometimes when we do this, we find out, hey, what I thought was a problem, it's not actually a problem at all. The answer is pretty clear-cut. So you want to ask those questions first. Step 2 is the only step with 2 parts. The first thing you're going to want to do in step 2 is identify and clearly state the problem. Chances are if you can't do that, you might not have a problem. And then the second part of step 2 is to consider the ethical principles that may apply and ranking them in applicability. So in terms of, okay, here's this issue concerning, this is a problem concerning patient confidentiality. That's one of the ethical principles. Confidentiality might very well be at the top of your list. So after you rank your ethical principles, step 3 is you're going to actually clarify your personal values as they relate to the problem. So you want to ask yourself, okay, what personal values of mine could influence how I'm responding to this problem? What personal values might be a challenge when I'm navigating this problem? Step 4, we're going to consider alternative actions, different things that we can do to solve this problem. And we want to weigh the benefits and the risks, the pros and cons. Step 5, we're going to choose the correct action or the action that we feel is the best choice. And we're going to just carry it out. We're going to do it. And then step 6, after you do the thing, you want to evaluate the outcome and consider what might you have done differently. What could be done differently next time? This is where I often like to consider what sort of preventative actions, if any at all, could I have taken to keep this from occurring in the first place. So, all that is fine and good. However, I feel this is a little bit wordy. It's a lot of words to remember, right? And I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up. They forget maybe 1 step or 2 steps. They forget which step comes first. They might skip over a step. So I like to make it a little bit simpler. So ask questions to determine if there is a problem. That's step number 1. So I'll just say, problem, question mark. Is there a problem? Now remember, step 2 is the only step that has 2 parts. Identify and clearly state the problem considering the ethical principles that may apply and ranking them in applicability. Okay, it can be simpler than that. ID problem, rank ethical principles. Okay, we're shortening them up. Step 3, clarify personal values as they relate to the problem. Personal values, rate the problem. Okay, what are your personal values as they relate to this problem? Step 4, consider alternative actions, including benefits and risks. Actions, pros and cons. So this is where you actually pick different courses of action. What I often like to do in this step is pick one action that's kind of like, well, if you remember the scientific method from grade school, you have to have a control group, right? A group to compare all of the other results to. So even not doing anything is doing something, as my philosophy classes taught me in college. So sometimes my control action might be doing nothing. Okay, the provider asks me not to interpret. Okay, well, my control action that I'm going to evaluate might be don't interpret. Not to say that that's the correct course of action, it's just something that you can compare the other actions to. Now, step 5 says choose the action and carry it out. Do the thing. Do it. Do it, as Shia LaBeouf would say. Step 6. Evaluate the outcome and consider what might be done differently next time. Evaluate outcome. Okay? So those are our 6 steps of the CHIA ethical decision-making process. However, it can be even simpler. So this is where I'm going to get a little abstract on y'all. We're going to use symbols and we're going to use memes. You ready? Step 1. Houston, we have a problem. So as we've established with my Shia LaBeouf gif, I like memes. That being said, some memes, much like expressions, are culturally specific, meaning not everyone gets them. So in addition to teaching you about the CHIA ethical decision-making process, I figured it would be a good opportunity to teach you the origins of a pretty popular saying, Houston, we have a problem. Technically, this is a movie quote from Apollo 13 in which the astronauts are communicating to NASA Mission Control in Houston that there's a problem on board their craft. However, the 1995 movie, starring Tom Hanks, is based on the real-life events of the Apollo 13 mission to the moon. The real quote is actually, "Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here." So step 1 of the CHIA ethical decision-making process is ask questions to determine if there is a problem. Houston, we have a problem. My nose itches. Step 2, identify the problem, rank those ethical principles. So let's look at step 2 here. Step 2, remember it's 2 parts. This is where we have, remember ID, the problem. Here's an ID. If you all are not familiar with this is from the movie Superbad. The movie Superbad. And so this is actually, I forget what his real name is, but he's a high school kid. He wants to get some alcohol and, well, he uses a fake ID to try and get it. He has this Hawaiian driver's license. It's a fake ID, and it says McLovin. So his name on the ID is McLovin. This is a meme. I thought this one was good for ID. Now, part 2 of step 2 is to rank those ethical principles. Okay, so here we have Mario Kart. In my opinion, the best Mario Kart ever, Mario Kart 64. I'm going to tell you, if you don't know what Mario Kart is, we've got problems. You've missed out on a lot in life. You need to play Mario Kart at least once in your life. And you know what? You gotta play it on the Nintendo 64. So we're ranking the winners, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, we're gonna rank our ethical principles. So step 2 of the CHIA ethical decision-making process is to identify, ID, and clearly state the problem. And then part 2 is to consider the ethical principles that may apply and rank them in applicability. So step 3 says personal values relating to the problem. All right, so this is where we've added our froggy. Therapy frog. This is a cross-cultural meme. Therapy frog. Now tell me, how does that make you feel? That's basically what you're doing in this step. You're considering, okay, are any of my personal values interfering with how I might be responding to this problem? Chances are, if you have some pretty strong values that are interfering with this, if you didn't rank the ethical principle of impartiality high in number 2, where you identify the problem and rank your ethical principles, you might need to. So step 3, therapy frog. Clarify personal values as they relate to the problem. So this gives us a froggy. So we now have our first 3 steps, which is Houston, we have a problem. So you need to ask questions to determine if there's a problem. Step 2, identify and clearly state the problem, ID. And then you're going to rank the ethical principles in terms of applicability, which is why we have these little people standing up on the podium. And then step 3 is therapy frog. We're going to do a little therapy frog. We're going to think about our personal values as they relate to the problem. Now, step 4 is we're going to come up with some different possible actions, and we're going to weigh the pros and cons, the risks and the benefits of each action. Now, I don't care much for Drake, but this is a good meme for this one. Oh my goodness, Hotline Bling, right? That's the song. So, pros and cons. What are your pros? What are your cons of each action? So the important thing about this is you want to think of, I usually like to do at least 3 different possible actions for this particular problem to try and resolve it. And remember, not doing anything is doing something. So step 4, consider alternative actions, including benefits and risks. So we got a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Now, step 5, that's when you do the thing. You choose an action and you carry it out. So we're going to go right back to Shia LaBeouf. Just do it. Kelly, this meme is so 2015. So what? It's perfect. So you're going to choose that action and you're going to carry it out, which is exactly why just do it. That's why we got the Nike swoosh. Nike, please don't sue me. Then, lastly, we have step 6. You're going to evaluate the outcome. You've already chosen your action in step 5. You did your Nike swoosh. And now you're going to evaluate the outcome and determine if there's anything different you could do next time. So this is where you ask yourself, okay, am I giving myself 1 star? Am I giving this particular action 1 star? This little sad star. Look at this thing. It's not even really a star if you're thinking about it. It says there was an attempt. Okay, that's 1 star. There was an attempt. Maybe things didn't go very well. Maybe, okay, it was a little bit better. You might get 2 stars for the outcome. It might be okay. Wow, such a try. Gotta love that meme. Or maybe, just maybe, there really wasn't much you could have done differently next time. The outcome was awesome. The little flaming, the little shooting star. My butt's on fire. Okay. So this is why we have stars. Okay. We're rating. We're considering the outcome. We're kind of determining, well, how did we do? Did I give you a 5-star ride, or did I give you anything less than a 5-star ride, as your Uber or Lyft driver might say? So these are our symbols. So if you remember number 1, we have our little astronaut. Houston, we have a problem. Do we have a problem? That's what step 1 is all about. So we need to ask questions to determine if there is a problem. Step 2, remember we have our little ID, and then we have our little podium, like on Mario Kart. We have McLovin and we have Mario Kart. Okay, ID and rank. So we're going to identify our problem, clearly stated, rank those ethical principles. Remember, step 2 is the only step that has 2 parts. And then here's the full text. You see how long it looks? Identify and clearly state the problem, considering the ethical principles that may apply and ranking them in applicability. Step 3 is our therapy frog, little frog. This is where we consider our personal values relating back to the problem. Clarify personal values as they relate to the problem. Step 4, we have our thumbs up and our thumbs down. We have Drake and Hotline Bling, pros and cons, right? Actions, so we're going to pick a couple of different actions and we're going to kind of rank, okay, what are the pros of each action, what are the cons of each action, especially as they relate back to ethical principles. So we're going to consider alternative actions, including benefits and risks. Number 5, we have our Nike swoosh. This is where we have Shia LaBeouf again saying, just do it. If you haven't seen that video, I'm going to try and link it here. So you do the thing, you pick an action and you do it. So you choose the action and you carry it out. Step 6. Remember, this is where we have our star ratings. This is where we evaluate the outcome. Is it a 1-star outcome, a 2-star outcome, or a 3-star outcome? So we evaluate the outcome and consider what might be done differently next time. So I know this was a pretty fast-paced video. This was really just designed to get you thinking about, get you to try and internalize this ethical decision-making process. We might not always have time to engage in it, but the more we memorize these steps, the more we remember not to skip over steps, the faster it's going to be for us when we're in the field and we're having to make these ethical decisions on the fly.